Royal biography continuing to make headlines. Tom Bower's bombshell book, Revenge, Meghan, Harry and the War Between the Windsors, documents Meghan Markle's life from her early years through to her rift. People from contacting you, do you believe that happened?
Oh, I know it happened. I mean, this is my 26th book. I know when people are cutting me out, and it was just ridiculous how difficult it was to get to people who I genuinely wanted to hear.
Well, my feeling is that they don't want to come back in. They want all the perks, the titles and the baubles and the power, but don't want to actually come back to Britain and rule the world.
Tom Bower isn't talking about coincidence here. He's talking about a woman who knew exactly what she wanted and went after it without apology. He challenges the audience by asking what side they were on. Did they love the royal family, respect Harry and Meghan, or remain neutral? As a self-described monarchist, he makes his position clear before diving in and spilling the tea, insisting that the Meghan and Harry story people think they know, the romance, glamour, and perfect royal couple aura, has vanished, replaced by chaos wrapped in designer labels and a brand full of contradictions, scandal, and drama intense enough to make Hollywood look tame. According to Bower, Meghan appeared like an intruder during the procession, aligning herself with anti-British media voices, and he accuses her of copying Diana rather than admiring her, rehearsing expressions, poses, and emotional mannerisms as if performing a one-woman show in an attempt to borrow Diana's charm, even down to wardrobe choices and camera angles. But authenticity, he argues, cannot be rehearsed. Where Diana's presence felt natural and compassionate, Meghan's came across as forced, staged, and performative, turning what Harry cherished about his mother into a prop for image building. Bower claims Meghan grew increasingly unhappy in Britain, resenting comparisons to Kate and bristling at criticism, while Harry, rather than protecting Diana's legacy, seemed to hand it over in service of Meghan's carefully crafted narrative. And yes, Harry played along. Instead of protecting his mother's memory, he became an enabler, allowing Meghan to treat it like a costume. And the result was an image that made Meghan look like a bargain bin Diana while Harry appeared as a pawn in a carefully staged performance. The audience noticed, because people always notice when genuine emotion is replaced with rehearsed lines, and as the stage was set and the cameras rolled, the world began to see through the act, leaving the fairy tale with a bitter aftertaste as the blueprint stopped working. Bower explains that this behavior made him curious about Meghan's past. What happened before, what kind of life and experiences led her to that interview where, in his view, so many questionable claims were made. Before the royal romance, Meghan wasn't an A-lister. She was hustling, networking, and learning how influence operates in Hollywood, and Bower reveals that it wasn't about acting talent as much as strategic positioning. Parties, luxury events, private gatherings, every handshake and every camera-ready smile serving as another calculated step in building connections rather than a resume. He argues that Meghan had a plan and wasn't stumbling into fame. She pursued it deliberately, looking toward England and seeking pathways to bigger recognition, and when Harry entered the picture, he became the ultimate prize: wealth, status, visibility, and a title wrapped into one relationship. Hollywood connections can only go so far, and while talent matters, opportunity matters more. Meghan understood that and pursued it appearance by appearance until she secured what Bower describes as the golden ticket, a strategy that now fuels public skepticism toward the innocent girl meets prince narrative. In his view, the couple has become an odd pairing, frustrated, dissatisfied, and constantly complaining, and he argues that their contradictions have turned into a high-stakes PR chess game the public is growing tired of, especially when Meghan shifts between claiming she barely knew Harry before they met and implying she'd long been aware of his life and image. You can't tell both stories at once, Bower suggests, and the audience, instead of being enchanted, is now simply exhausted. Bower insists his book isn't biased, explaining that he worked to balance the narrative by acknowledging Meghan's positive qualities, her ambition, determination, and striking presence, even as he exposes how every interview, staged reveal, and glossy Netflix production appears carefully orchestrated to serve her preferred storyline. According to him, raw emotion is replaced by calculated expressions, rehearsed pauses, and tearful moments that feel scripted, with even tender scenes, family photos, holiday moments, public appearances, curated to keep the spotlight centered on Meghan, where the baby becomes a prop and the setting a backdrop. In the end, he claims, she succeeded in finding exactly the man she'd been seeking all along, someone who elevated her image, but along the way, there were casualties. Harry, once charismatic, lighthearted, and genuine, is portrayed as the supporting actor now, nodding along, echoing talking points, and appearing subdued and mechanical, a shadow of the person his friends once knew. Bauer recalls how difficult it was to speak with people from Meghan's past, former colleagues and acquaintances, because, he argues, she works hard to control access and filter the narrative, timing social posts, announcements, and photo opportunities to dominate headlines and steer public perception. What was once sold as honesty and transparency now feels, in his view, like an exhausting PR cycle, a contradiction game that leaves audiences skeptical rather than inspired. And while Harry was once a relatable prince people genuinely admired, Bauer paints him today as an accessory in Meghan's carefully directed production, with every appearance and statement filtered through her strategy as she continues to shape the story on her terms. Harry's friends and family noticed the transformation. Almost immediately, the man who once spoke his mind, cracked jokes, and showed warmth and confidence now appears cautious, subdued, and almost robotic. Instead of leading, he nods along, echoes words, and confirms what is already being said, becoming a supporting actor in his own life story. What once looked like admirable ambition in Meghan has, as critics suggest, taken on a colder edge, a kind of ruthlessness that doesn't land well, especially when paired with the public conflicts, media appearances, and burned bridges that now leave Harry unable to turn back. Once a prince admired for his sincerity, charity work, and military service, he now seems overshadowed, a prop in a narrative powered by Meghan's calculated ambition. Bauer's depiction frames Harry as a man who has lost his autonomy, standing in the background while Meghan performs center stage, each carefully timed appearance, contradiction, and emotional display reinforcing his diminished role. At the same time, Bauer argues that Meghan's trajectory was never accidental. Her rise from modest Hollywood roles to global icon status was the result of deliberate strategy. Every event, every introduction, every photo opportunity building toward influence, visibility, and power. She pursued fame with determination, turning networking into a roadmap and aligning herself with both royalty and Hollywood elites to cement her brand. Although she came from a difficult background and ultimately achieved wealth, status, and success, the journey, Bauer suggests, left damage in its wake, relationships strained, narratives controlled, and a spotlight that now shines brighter on Meghan than on the prince who once stood so confidently on his OW and WY. The time Harry entered the picture, Meghan had already positioned herself to capitalize on opportunity. She didn't stumble into royalty, she executed a deliberate networking strategy, with Harry becoming both the prize and the enabler, allowing her to shape the narrative while she took control of the spotlight. When asked about Harry now, observers note how vocal he has been in recent years, sometimes to a degree that feels excessive, yet his role in this story appears increasingly complex. Bauer highlights what he calls the contradiction game, where Meghan alternates between claiming she barely knew Harry before their relationship and describing how she had carefully studied his life and career, leaving the public unsure whether their connection was born from chance or strategy. Meanwhile, Meghan's father, Thomas Markle, is portrayed as an aging, hurt man who still professes love for his daughter despite feeling cut off and confused by her treatment of him. As interviews, appearances, and social media moments continue, rehearsed emotion seems to replace authenticity, and the carefully controlled storytelling begins to show cracks. What was once framed as a victim narrative now raises skepticism instead of sympathy, prompting audiences and media alike to question motives, contradictions, and the reality behind the polished facade. Even Harry, who once exuded warmth and authenticity, now appears scripted and predictable, nodding along and echoing lines that seem shaped by Meghan or their PR team. Bauer describes this as part of a broader contradiction game, a calculated effort to control perception, but one that is beginning to fail as the public notices inconsistencies between claims of innocence and signs of deliberate ambition. Meanwhile, Thomas Markle is portrayed as a man finally speaking openly about Meghan's past, her upbringing, and her early relationships, sharing details he had never voiced before. As these contradictions multiply, Meghan's brand weakens, trust erodes, and interviews meant to clarify only deepen skepticism, with every staged photo or emotional reveal adding to the sense that the fairy tale narrative has shifted into something manufactured. Hollywood, Bauer argues, eventually pushed back. Netflix projects felt more like therapy sessions than compelling content, Spotify partnerships faltered, and brand ventures stalled as producers and insiders grew wary of controversy and inconsistencies surrounding her image. Ambition without solid execution proved costly, and even appearances during high-profile royal events underscored limits to influence, leaving Harry and Meghan returning to the US appearing frustrated and diminished rather than empowered, as the strategy that once promised dominance instead exposed cracks in both reputation and control. By this point, it seemed Harry and Meghan had finally received the message. The empire Meghan envisioned, built on media dominance, creative control, and A-list relevance, began to collapse under its own weight. Each failed deal, stalled project, and contradictory statement chipped away at credibility, replacing allure with an air of desperation and overexposure. Hollywood, a world driven by both talent and trust, started to view the brand as over-calculated and relentlessly self-promotional. As discussion turned toward Harry's upcoming memoir and questions of potential revenge, Bauer highlighted an even more unsettling element: the way their children appeared to be positioned within the media narrative, not simply as private family figures, but as tools to shape public perception. Carefully timed photos, styled announcements, and choreographed appearances seemed designed to generate headlines rather than preserve privacy, a striking contradiction for a couple who claimed to have left royal life to escape intrusive attention. Harry's participation only deepened the paradox, reinforcing a pattern of controlled exposure rather than protection. Even moments surrounding national mourning were framed through this lens, with imagery that drew attention toward Meghan rather than the child at the center of the announcement. For critics, it crossed a moral line. Instead of evoking sympathy, it revealed something calculated and unsettling. Bauer's account suggests that when sympathy fades and contradictions mount, using a child as a strategic prop may win temporary attention, but it leaves a lasting stain on credibility and the carefully constructed image that once promised admiration. They have remained relentless, truly relentless, in their push to secure the titles of Prince and Princess for Archie and Lilibet. In the end, Tom Bauer delivers a decisive conclusion: the Meghan Markle brand is collapsing. Public patience has faded, and repeated contradictions, staged victimhood, and failed projects have steadily eroded trust, credibility, and influence. Deals falter, Hollywood backs away from the risk, and the once carefully curated image has unraveled, revealing the royal rebel persona as a calculated and self-serving performance rather than a symbol of authenticity or change. The narrative of rebellion and reinvention has run its course. The empire built on contradictions has crumbled in full view of the world. Meghan's relentless ambition, once seemingly unstoppable, now collides sharply with reality, and Harry remains trapped in the aftermath, a shadow of the man he once was, as the curtain falls on a kingdom shaped more by strategy than sincerity.